Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Democratic View. I'm the hostess, and my name is Phyllis Italiano. And with me, I have a woman whose life is memorized in my head.
Well, that's nice.
I've interviewed her before.
You have.
It's Sylvia Overby, our wonderful town councilwoman. And Sylvia, for those who don't know you, I want you to tell us just a bit about your past. You were born in California.
I was born in Southern California and moved when we were quite young to Florida and really grew up in Florida. Went to high school and middle school and the end of my elementary school years were in
It was because your mother was working at Rollins College.
Well, that was one of the things, yeah, that she did, and my dad was also there, so it was, he also had a job there, so it was, you know, it was time to move the family, and we loved being in Florida at that time, Central Florida area.
Yes.
And so, but I went to college in Atlanta, and was in Atlanta, that's where I met my husband, who had been transferred down from New York to work at Macy's, and I had then was actually teaching school for 3 years in Atlanta, and went to work for Macy's after that.
As a biology teacher.
I was a biology teacher.
And an Emory School graduate. Come on, that's a great school.
It was a great school. I loved it.
Wonderful science department.
It did. Had a wonderful science department. So, and I taught school for 3 years. So.
And went to Macy's. Why?
I went to Macy's because they paid more.
Than a teacher.
Than a teacher.
How do you like that, folks?
Yeah.
Teachers don't make as much as somebody working in Macy's.
That was the reason I really had to do that. I had to make that move. And so I was a manager at Macy's. And that's really when I met my husband, was when I was managing one of their departments. So,
great.
Yeah, but it was a step up in salary. So at that time, it was important that I make that step up.
Yes,
so,
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And then the story goes on when...
Well, we both loved water, my husband and I. He had been raised on Long Island and had been raised in Huntington, Long Island. And as some people may remember Carlton Kelsey, who was the librarian and also a historian and at the Amagansett Library. And when I first came here, Carlton asked, he says, well, you know, where are you from? And I told him, and he said, well, how did you get here? And I said, well, I married someone from Huntington. And he said, well, at least you had the good sense to marry someone from Suffolk County. So I didn't have enough sense to marry someone from East Hampton, but enough sense to marry someone from Suffolk County. So.
And what was your husband trying to show you?
Our discussion was about beaches and where the best beaches were, and I thought I knew where the best beaches were. And he said, oh no, he knew where the best beaches were, and they were in East Hampton. Yeah. And he won. He was absolutely correct, and
indeed.
I never wanted, once I saw this place, that spot where you just say, this is it, I found my calling practically. This is where I wanted to be.
For me, it was when I turned that corner on 27.
That's a good one.
And I said, wow,
yeah.
What a place.
It is. What a place.
Yeah.
So, and we continue to work to keep it
a
place.
Please, I spend my life doing that too.
Yeah.
I should be doing other things, but I'd rather save East Hampton. So then you started getting a little active in this.
Got involved in the community through the Amagansett Citizens Advisory Committee. I've often said to my friend Joan Tulp, who has sometimes said that she's the mayor of Amagansett, has been given that moniker. She said, why don't you come to a meeting? You need to get involved. And so that was, I blame her for moving forward with this. And it was a good time to get involved in my community. And it was an important time for me as there were some changes going on in Amagansett and along the Amagansett, as we called it, the corridor into Amagansett. And so it was a time to get involved, and I did.
And from there?
From there, went to the planning department and was chair for 4 years, vice chair for 2 years, and was a member in total for 7. So, and from there
That must have been a very interesting job. And that certainly did give you an opportunity to get to know the ins and outs of all of East Hampton.
Planning is a great foundation for really knowing not only your constituents, but I mean knowing the basis on why East Hampton looks the way it looks, and to understand that, and to then integrate people that come in front of you that are planning projects that are good projects, and your job is to make sure that they fit into the community character, and that's an important part of, again, why East Hampton looks like it does. And planning before I got there had done some really innovative things: cluster housing, keeping big open spaces in developments instead of just divvying up the lots so that everybody was on the same amount of square footage or acreage in the lots. You kind of cluster the houses, have big open space. That's been a real boon to how and why we look the way we look. And there were a lot of other things that planning did that was very innovative and kind of went across the country with some of those innovations.
And it also gave you the opportunity to get to know the code. Yeah,
well, it does. You have to. Everything is based on that.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
You really have to know the code in order to be able to make judgments.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you know the code, of course, that's what really qualifies
Right.
you to take that next step.
Right.
And the next step was
being on the town board. So that was, it was a good training ground. Planning was a good training ground. And so, the 4 years that I've been here have gone really quickly, faster than I probably anticipated, although I have to say the first 2 years were challenging.
Oh,
and,
yes. And then you also, did you meet Peter Van Scoyoc on the planning?
I did. He'd actually been on the zoning board, I don't know what years. I think in the early 2000s he had actually been on the zoning board. And so then he came on to the planning board, and he was still on the planning board, I think, when he ran for town board 4 years ago.
And you guys certainly had to support each other through what I would call a trying time.
Well, it was certainly, as I said, it was challenging. And, one thing I've often said about Peter Van Scoyoc is he has a great sense of humor.
Yes, indeed.
And he can, sometimes distill things down to its essence, and so you just don't get upset. If you can do that, if you can, then you don't need to be concerned, and you just have to do what is important to you. And so for 2 years, we did the things that we thought were real important to us, as best we could.
Yes, I mean, and so one of the things you did was you did happen to get Dominic Stanzione also to work with you on the wastewater.
Wastewater was interesting. We did a forum together, bringing in some experts, really trying to, at that point, decide whether it was worthwhile to put money into keeping the plant, the wastewater the wastewater plant, the scavenger wastewater plant, or whether it was something that needed to be closed down. And it went back and forth. I had feelings in both directions. And it was decided that it should be closed down. It will save the town quite a bit of money in operating costs. So that's the direction that the town board wanted to go. It's been almost a year and a half now, maybe, that it was closed down. And I still do keep in touch with some of the local haulers, and it's a little more difficult. They go to Riverhead. A lot go to Riverhead or to Bergen Point, which is further up island. But it seems to have worked out, and
Well, it would have taken an enormous investment of money on the part of the town to bring it up to code, because it was just had so many violations from the DEC. Am I correct?
There were 11 at the time that I came onto the board, and that was one of the reasons that they had 11 exceedances of nitrogen. And of course, that is the big culprit that we don't want.
That's the dirty word.
Influencing our water on any surface groundwater at all. So you know, it needed to be updated. It had been, I think, put in 1989, so it had been, it had gone through a lifespan and needed to be revived or closed down.
Yes. So now you were on the town board that was under the leadership of our great leader there that we have, Mr. Cantwell.
Yep.
And there has been an awful lot of things that have happened.
Well, it's been nice to be able to work together, and the entire board, I think, works really well together.
Yes.
We don't all agree on everything, as I don't think any board should. I think we all bring something new and different to the table. And
sometimes I can't agree with myself. What are you talking about?
But I think our discussions are good. I think our direction has been certainly influenced by the community, which it should be. That's what an elected official does. And you know, I'm very proud of a lot of things I was able to sponsor myself. And even sort of in those first 2 years, working with revitalizing the Recycling and Litter Committee, which I think is one of the big things on our plate today, is how much litter is in our community, how we solve some of that problem.
Are you kidding?
I understand.
You're talking to me? Me who picks up all over the place?
Right.
I mean, really, someday I want to get hit by a car if I say, and down at the beach, my God.
The beach has been challenging. We revitalized the Adopt a Road program, and you know, so bringing that committee back, giving, you know, a voice to some of the problems that we have just in litter, that was, I think, important. And then bringing back the anti-bias task force, which has sort of not been around for a while. And again, you know, it seems now an important piece of what we need to be considering, not just in East Hampton, but really nationwide. So I was very proud to be able to do that, and then to bring forward the East Hampton Arts Council, which really gives voice to artists in our community. That, you know, we sometimes look at artists and say, oh, that's really nice, or that's really pretty. We don't really look at them as a vital, integral part to our business community. And they really are. They contribute to our you know, they earn a salary here. They spend their money here. They sell their goods here as far as they can, and you know, we're hoping that we have more outlet for them to sell their goods here, and that's an important part of the business of East Hampton, and so that's what the East Hampton Arts Council is really about. We needed to give them that voice, so I was happy to get that together. We're working on some programs that we're going to do in conjunction with East End Arts Council. That'll be coming up in the fall. So again, we want venues where people can actually see artists contributing to the community in a monetary way, that they are a business.
And by the way, when you speak about the Arts Council, you're not just speaking about the painters and the photographers. You're talking about all kinds of
all
artists.
Kinds of art, performers,
yes.
Poets, musicians, you know, any of the arts,
yes.
any of the arts. So that was all kind of done in those first couple of years. And then the other thing that I was very proud to be able to sponsor was getting Indian Wells Beach back to a family beach.
I know, I go to it now.
See, now you go. I have another,
yes,
another friend that says they go there every day. It's a difference, and part of that was
my whole family goes there.
Well,
now.
it's a local beach. It had really. You know, there had been a lot of problems.
The character
had changed. And just doing some of the things that we did, which was, you know, we now have a booth there that really checks your sticker. In other words, you can't park there and just pay the parking ticket and as a cost of being at the beach for the day. There's someone there on a weekend that can check the sticker and make sure it's locals only. That's been very helpful. We did increase the parking spaces that were there. That's also been helpful. And we said you can't have a cab go and turn around. A taxi cannot go up into the parking lot at all, nor can a bus. So we stopped the buses going in that were coming from other areas of Long Island and dropping kids off. And we then changed, with the help of the trustees, you know, talking with them, changed that there's no alcohol on that beach for a certain distance between lifeguarded hours, and then if you want to drink alcohol, you go, more than 1,000 feet away. So that has really changed the character of
That's a
that
great
beach.
combination, alcohol in the ocean.
Well, and you can see it in the statistics as we look at what's happened with summonses for public urination and alcohol open containers. Those statistics start to go down, and those, especially for the last summer, 2014, which put that, which is a great success story. I think that Indian Wells Beach is the success story that shows us that the summonses went down during that time period, and that's what we wanted to happen.
It's also very important. I always think about the time when you all were talking about it. I think about the time that we were in Fire Island for many years, and my brother-in-law, Mel Brooks, had a guy, a drunk, in the surf, and he was struggling to save that guy. We were on a non-lifeguarded beach.
Yeah.
And I swear, we were screaming at, Mel, drop him, stop it already, until a couple of other guys came. He was bringing Mel down.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't,
It's not a good combination.
No, it's, I would say deadly.
So it is, but for safety reasons, that's one, but also to bring the beach back to being a
Oh,
local
absolutely,
beach.
absolutely.
And to have kids there.
Yes.
I mean, parents didn't want to have their, kids influenced by what they were seeing, and it wasn't a healthy place for families to go, and I think it's back.
That's great, that's great. So you've also done many, many things, this particular board. I mean, we certainly know that there's, for one thing, a plastic bag.
The plastic bag ban, that was another good thing I was really happy to sponsor. So that goes into effect on September 22nd.
Great.
And we still need to do some outreach and education. A lot of the businesses are already switched over. But we waited a little bit longer. Southampton went into effect on Earth Day, so that was April, I think, the 22nd.
Yes.
We moved ours to September so that there were businesses that said they still have a lot of plastic bags that they needed to get rid of, and they didn't want to just.
But many of them already did it anyway.
They did, but it gave them an opportunity, and so we wanted to give our local businesses opportunity to get rid of stock that they may have already had and paid for, and then they could switch over more at their convenience than anything else. So, and even switching over to paper is not the end all. What we really want is for people to learn how to bring their own bags with them. And there are some that are on the market.
Back of my car is full of them.
Well, but there's another type that that folds up into a little ball, and then you can kind of punch it out, and it becomes a nice bag.
Oh.
So particularly for women, they can put it in their pocketbook, and it won't really take up a lot of space. So I carry one of those around. Southampton actually gave those out many years ago. Maybe 2 or 3 years ago. They got someone to sponsor them. So I would hope that we might be able to find somebody to do that. But you can buy them online as well. You can go to Amazon.com and find these. My sister gave me one for Christmas, so I've got several of them. And they're enough for you to go to the grocery store and get a day's worth of something. Or if you're going into CVS, that's the place I forget to take my bag all the time, is going into CVS drugstore.
Where?
CVS.
Don't go there.
Okay, well,
You know me, I have a thing with box stores. That's another thing that you worked on.
I did. I worked on the chain formula store legislation, and now if you're a chain store or a formula store coming into the town of East Hampton, you will have a public hearing at the planning board level. And and the planning board will make some decisions whether you need to have a traffic study or and you have to conform. You have to look like East Hampton. You can't come in and look like your store. I know this is, the example is McDonald's most of the time. You wouldn't want some golden arches is sort of the iconic poster child for what you wouldn't want to see. We wouldn't want that in East Hampton. It doesn't look like East Hampton. But what you would want is for it to look and feel in the area that it decides it's going to be in, and if it can be there. I mean, the planning board has now a list of things that are in a special permit that they would have to follow those items on that special permit. So, and the other thing that it does, although our law is specifically about community character, We know that our local businesses give more consistently to charities, to local charities. We know that they employ more people that are here and that live here, and the money continues to circulate within the town of East Hampton instead of going to wherever the franchise corporate headquarters are that, usually there's a fee to be paid to them. That money is now not going to go out of the town. It's going to stay in East Hampton and circulate in East Hampton.
One thing I want to remind people was when you guys came in, really under Larry Cantwell, there had been so many issues that because the town had grown so quickly, so very quickly, and infrastructure had not really been able to keep up with everything. I think the probably prime example, and which really says it all, is probably the airport. And what you guys did with the airport was really very heartening.
But it's in progress. It is not.
I understand
okay,
that.
It is not completed. We just started the process. And again, returning that airport to local control was the goal, and it is still the goal. And we haven't gotten there yet. We've got some battles to fight in the courts, and we certainly understand that there's still a noise problem there. We still may have to change some of the definitions.
1-800-376-4817.
There you go.
And I didn't do it before. And I do it now because I know how important it is for your cases.
It is. It's important for the case. It's important to know how many households are disturbed and that continue to be disturbed. I know some people get fatigue. I think it was mentioned even at the town board meeting, at the work session that we had yesterday. People are fatigued at having to call.
Yes.
We got the curfew, which was, and for the regular aircraft, it's 11 to 7, 11 at night to 7 in the morning. For noisy aircraft, as we've defined it, it's from 8 p.m. until 9 a.m. So, but that means that it doesn't mean we have less aircraft coming. It just means they're compacted into some certain time frames, which still means it's noisy. And we understand that it's still noisy. We didn't get the second part of what we think would have really helped with some of the noise problems, which was one trip per week for a noisy aircraft. So, we're working on that. It's in the court system. We're going to keep managing the noise at the airport the best way we can, and having the courts work with us, or well, not. I guess the courts don't work with us, but having the courts, give us the things like the curfews, recognizing that we have the right to do a curfew was really one of the best things that has come out of it so far. I know it's not the relief that the noise affected want to hear, because they're hearing too much noise still, but we're getting there.
Yes, and it is important for people to let everybody know and report them when they do hear it at 2 o'clock in the morning, as I occasionally do.
Well, then they've broken a curfew, and
That's why I make sure I do it.
Okay, thank you.
And then you also have done an awful lot about open space. You had an enormous amount of money from the CPF fund, which you have.
Well, CPF is really one of the things that we want to work with CPF is making sure our water is clean. So we did a whole outreach in Montauk, in the Montauk Lake watershed, and sent out letters to parcels that were vacant. We got responses back that fit the criteria. A lot of wetlands. I mean, the wetlands are really the sponges that really protect us.
They clean the water.
They clean the water. They absorb the water when we get floods. It's better to have a wetland that's not touched than a drainage field of some sort made out of cement. And that's part of the infrastructure we don't want to have built. We want the natural infrastructure that was meant to be here. So we want to do that now. We've done that outreach, and we're still getting letters in and properties in that are in that watershed in Lake Montauk. We're doing one now for Springs. you know, you look at any place, you know, the Springs has a lot of has all the bays. So you look at, well, Amagansett does too, but Springs has a lot of our bay system, and we want to make sure that we, again, keep
I know it and
ownership.
love it
Thank
desperately.
you. And we're buying waterfront properties, and those waterfront properties are an important part of this whole, when we can get the waterfront properties, we want to be able to purchase them if possible.
It's making sure that those septic systems are no longer going to affect the...
Well, and that's where we have bought properties with houses on them, several of them in Northwest, which really those septic systems are in the water. And so we have to make sure that we, you know, we didn't know enough even in the early 80s what was happening. So we're correcting some of those problems.
Well, that's been the big thing that you people have been really working on, is trying to bring the town up to the times that we are in right now, when all of these things were allowed to go on, and not because everybody was just so negligent. It was just that they didn't know. They didn't realize.
That was part of it. And so now...
Sometimes they were negligent also.
Sometimes but for the most part, we're trying to make sure that we correct. And it keeps our sustainability. You know, we know there's climate change. We know there's sea level rise.
And we didn't even talk about the fact that we're going to be sustainable in this.
We didn't do our 100% sustainable. We're trying to do that.
But my dear girl, every time you come, it goes so quickly.
There's more to talk about.
Yes, indeed. I know. You telling me, I know all about these things. Good. I follow you all on what you're doing.
Right.
So.
Well, we will continue this discussion and the discussion with the community, because there's more to talk about.
Yes, I know, and we have to make sure that people are aware that we have to do everything we can to protect this town.
Yep, that's
I really do feel it.
That's why I'm doing it.
That's why I'm doing it too.